Hello everyone and welcome to Tokens and Heft. Today we're taking a look at the full metal battle sport that is Grind. This game came out in 2009. I just recently found out about it because I happened to see it at my friendly local game store. This is great. But aside from that, it's like the fictional sport that they play in the Iron Kingdom's War Machines universe. So it's a little like soccer, but it's got more in common, I guess, with rugby and maybe a bit of hockey. But more or less, it's giant Steamjacks batting around a giant metal spiked ball over a pit of lava. So, I mean, that's a good start, right? Let's have a look inside. I love the box art. Hold on a sec. We'll leave it up. You have a lovely rule book. It's monochrome, but it is very nice. There's some decent art. Welcome to the Destructo Dome. That's the arena. It's the name for it. Nice target over everything. Goes over everything pretty well. I haven't really had any questions that weren't solved by rereading a rule or two. There's a nice shot of the grinder on the back. Not too bad. This is a cheat sheet for stuff that we tend to forget or end up having to keep looking up. And then here are the stat cards for the two teams. The Iron Storm in blue and the Steel Fury in red. Now, the teams are more or less identical, except for visual aesthetics and how you equip your team. You see, these are the different types of weapons you can have on a Crusher, which is your heavy guy. Runners are your light guys. Each team will have 2 Crushers and 3 Runners. Speaking of which, let's have a look at those. Look, Fantasy Flight, nice storage. It's not the fanciest storage. It's not like it's got individual slots for everything, but it does exactly what it needs to do. We've got our 2 teams. I keep the blue arms here, the red arms here, and then the extra bits. Inside you'll get 2 spiked columns, the grinder, and this and these guys are all just... Hold on a second, I'll give you a shot if I can. They're just 2 identical pieces that snap together. No big deal. I have not used any glue of any kind on this set at all. You do not need to glue anything. Your fingers might be a little sore after popping all the bits into the Warjacks because, especially the faces, they're pointy and you have to get some real pressure to get them into the socket. But they all stay, nothing falls apart, so that's great. It's nice that I don't have to glue them together, even though it's not that big of a deal. And I definitely plan on painting these guys at some point. I don't know if I'm going to paint the team, especially since they're a slightly different material and I don't know how paint's going to work. Mainly because I have no experience whatsoever. But these guys, I want these all to look like they're nice and metallized, maybe worn down a little bit. Also get inside the set of all the dice you need. White dice are action dice, blue dice are boost dice, red dice are the power dice, and we'll get into that in a bit. And then we have a dozen tokens. I kind of wish there were more, and I kind of wish they were double-sided, but really, you don't need that much. I mean, there's 2 tokens in here for keeping track of score. There's a scoreboard on the actual board. There's a few tokens for effects, rattled and knocked down, and then there's a target marker for each side. And while that seems light, really that's all we've needed. We haven't ever had a shortage of tokens so far. So, while it's not many, it's not bad. Then we get into the Warjacks. Well, these are Steamjacks since they're not designed for battle. Start off with some Crushers. There's a Crusher from both teams. The arms on every guy can move about because the arms on the Runners and the Crushers are interchangeable. They the first time popping them out, hold on a sec. Oh, then of course as I get it off camera, it slides right in, no problem. They're a little tough to get in and out sometimes, but if you just kind of play with them, it's really not that bad. Popping the arms in and out is pretty easy. So yeah, here's a runner or a crusher from both sides. Here's a runner from either team. And then for size comparison, here's the size difference. So you're definitely not going to mistake them for each other on the field. And here is what I'm talking about when your fingers might hurt. The heads are not glued in. Well, the heads are, everything pops in. None of this is glued. And these guys move around a little bit, but they take the heads seem to take a lot of pressure to get in there, and you can't really get a good grip, and you end up with these little front pointy bits stabbing into your fingers. I can almost still feel it. And I put them together like a week ago. And then you've got a smattering of arms for each side. Now these are just what I don't currently have equipped on the red guys, of course. Both teams get the exact same number of arms. They have the same amount of regular just fists. They have the same amount of every single type of weapon. So the teams are potentially start off even. And it's really all about how you equip your team and how you play your team. Which I like. I see this big open space down here, and I kind of wish there were more arms or some sort of expansion or something like that. But really, since it's like a sports game, it works better without that. You know, this is just a nice standard setup, and the game is more about what you do with your team than with what your team has equipped. And I like that. Hold on a minute. I'm going to do a magic jump cut, and then we'll have a setup board, and I will explain more about this fun game. And we're back. Here is a fully set up game of Grind, or at least a game ready to start. Grind is a game that takes place over the course of 2 periods. Each period is going to have 5 turns, or 5 rounds each, and in each round, each player will take a turn with all of their guys, during which they will activate every one of their Steamjacks. You can do an activation where you're like, alright, this guy, he's activated, but he's not doing anything. That's perfectly admissible. To set up, actually, let's go over the board real quick. It might be hard to see. These guys are kind of all lined up against. There's a red line here and a blue line here. And that area back to your goal is the goal area. There are some rules that refer to your goal area or things of that nature. Mostly one of the plays you can run. Each side has a goal pit, of course. That's where you're trying to get the grinder into. Each goal pit has a backboard behind it. That means that you can't get the grinder into the pit, into the goal, from the 3 spaces directly behind it. If you try and get it in from back here, the grinder will just bounce off the backboard. There are steam vents, and there's one under each of these. They are just there for aesthetics, and really, from what I can tell, I think it's just a nice way to weave just board markings into the actual environment without them just being icons. Because these steam vents around the whole thing outline the central play field where most of the action's going to happen. And it's an easy visual way to remember where your goal zone is, because if you're past one of the steam vents, then you're in a goal zone. Around the edge of the board is a gutter. Steamjacks can move into and out of the gutter, no big deal, no problem. When the grinder gets into the gutter, sometimes it might roll extra. We'll talk about that in a bit. And what else have I got? I think that's about all I have to go over for the actual board. Oh, and the edge of the board is our walls. They're obstacles as well as these 2 spiked columns in the middle. Then we've got the grinder here, which starts in the catch. At the beginning of a round or what have you, the catch, or the grinder can't be moved out of the catch by ranged attacks. You have to get up next to it and make a melee attack. Once it's started, though, the game's kicked off and the play just works, or the catch works like just another normal space. Now, to begin the game, first what you're supposed to do is both teams roll 5 power dice. There's 10 in the game, so they each roll half. Whoever has the most strikes decides who sets up and goes first. I've just moved past that, and we're going to have red go first. You will also need down here, so red's going first. Red's got all 10 of his dice in this nice little orange area known as his dice pool. Let's zoom in a little bit, but it's just going to be too much effort right now. So you've got those in your dice pool, and these are the dice you'll be able to use on your turn. At the beginning of your turn, before I even start on what your turn does, also each team has a scoreboard with a little marker in their color. Blue's got a blue one, and you put that at 0. At the start of your first turn, you will take one of the red power dice, revealing the number 1 underneath, and that will also go into your dice pool. So for the first round, you're going to have 1 power dice to use, or the first turn you take. And that happens every turn. The neat thing, though, is the power die, once it's been used, goes into your dice well. And when you start your second turn, you will take the next die and any dice in your dice well. So on your second round, you're going to have 2 power dice, then 3, 4, and 5. Power dice they have the highest chance of hitting. There's only 1 blank spot on them. You need to use at least 1 power die when making a power attack. And that's really all that there is to power dice, but it's neat that you get another one every round, and it just keeps building up, because this is there to represent the match getting more heated as the clock runs down. We're getting close to the end of the period, so they're trying to score harder. They're just really going for it, It's a very War Machine kind of idea. All right, I'm going to center back up and go over some of the basics. Also keeps the 4 blue dice handy, because those are boost dice. First thing I want to do, red starting off. First thing I want to do is I want to move this guy here, this crusher, over to the grinder. Let me pull out the stat card. See, a crusher has a movement or a speed of 4. That means it can move 4 spaces. The first diagonal that you move counts as 1 space. Any subsequent diagonals count as 2. Which seems weird when you first hear it, but it makes a lot of sense and works everything out. Because no diagonals is awful, but being able to use them all the time freely as 1 space really opens things up a lot. So it's a nice little balance. Crushers also have an armor of 4, a boiler of 2, and a control of X. We'll get to those all in a minute. So, I've got 4 spaces I can move. I don't know if I can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, thank God, I was able to do it. First off, facing of the jacks matters. So wherever their head is pointing, that's the space they're facing. Must be facing it's orthogonal. You can't face diagonal. This guy has reach on the 3 spaces in front of him, which includes the grinder here in the catch. So now I would like to make an attack on the grinder. There are other things you can do besides just attacking it. This guy has a heavy fist. I could have him throw the grinder, but that's a power attack. I'm not going to cover them just yet. I'll give you a basic attack. First, you declare which arm you're going to use. I'm going to use the pulverizer here. Now, the pulverizer, no special rules like many of the other things. 4 dice, 3 boost dice, and it's a melee arm. The 3 blue dice must be rolled. So no matter what, well, when you're making an attack, you have to include one of your white action dice. You can include up as many dice as you like, up to the stat listed for the weapon. So I really want to knock the grinder way into here. So I'm using the pulverizer. I'm going to get these 3 no matter what. And just to save some for the rest of the team, I will use 2 regular action dice. So let's see how this attack goes. The way an attack works is you roll the dice, the number of strikes has to equal or exceed the armor of your target for the attack to succeed. For every strike you roll over the target's armor, you can push them 1 space. Ho! Got a super strike, which is nice, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, for the most part, the grinder has an armor of 0. You can change that through other effects, but generally it's got an armor of 0. And I got 5 strikes, so I can move this guy 5 spaces. Again, only one diagonal, or the first diagonal counts as 1, others count as 2. It's going to hit it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to get into some fun stuff. You see, the grinder, when it was here, is in reach of this guy. So, when it moves here, it's leaving a space that this guy has reach on. This guy has the interceptor arm, which means, and the interceptor is a control arm, which means he can try one of the 3 control moves. You can stop the grinder, push the grinder, or hold the grinder if someone's trying to knock it away from your reach. He's going to try and stop the grinder. The way this works is he rolls a number of blue boost dice equal to his control stat. The control stat for any jack is equal to the number of control arms it has. So he's got 1 control arm, but the interceptor has an extra bonus for goaltending, but when it's trying to stop, it gets an extra 2 boost dice. He's only got 1 control arm, so we would normally roll 1 die to stop it. But now he's got to roll 3. Crap, this has to do with momentum. The grinder has momentum as well. Usually it's only with a throw or something. Anyway, you put a target marker down where you want it to go. So I hit the guy from here. It went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, wait, really? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say I rolled 6 because apparently... Oh, no, wait, I am right. 5 is correct. He wanted to stop it here. So you got to figure out the momentum. It started here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. This gets confusing. If I'm right, the momentum of the grinder here is 0. I don't know how else that would work. So, we're just going to give this a shot. The grinder's momentum is going to be 0. Normally, it's the number of spaces to the intended target. It's the number of strikes you rolled minus the number of spaces to the intended target. Can't go below 0. So, we're making a stop attempt. He rolled some successes, and since I'm pretty sure the grinder's momentum was, I think, 1 at that space, he rolled 3 strikes, so he successfully stopped the grinder in that space. That took a little longer than it should have, but we got through it. Now we finally completed this one single attack, and it seems like a lot, but it's tricky stuff. The 2 dice you used go into the dice pool of your opponent. They don't really get to use them yet, but it's just a way of keeping the dice on one side of the table or the other. As you use them, they go to your opponent. When it's his turn, he uses them, they come back to you, and back and forth. So that was a demonstration of a stop, which took longer than it should have, and just a basic attack. Normally, you just want to roll higher than your target's armor. Crushers have an armor of 4, runners have an armor of 2. Another fun thing you should know about is, let's say these guys are here. If you roll, you can knock other opponents around just as easily as you knock around anyone else, or knock around the grinder. So, let's try another pulverizer attack. We're going to do the same thing, 3 dice, 3 boost dice, like, because you have to. I'm going to do 2 action dice. Wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6! So I just hit that guy for 6. His armor is 2, I can push him 4 spaces. And since I hate him, I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And now he's way out in the gutter and I don't have to worry about him. So while you're knocking the grinder around, you're also knocking each other around. If you knock an opponent into a wall, another Warjack, or one of these spiked columns, they will get knocked down. Which basically means they have to forfeit their move or their action next turn. The other effect is Rattled. That's a little trickier. It's like you can only use white action dice on your turn. Then once that Jack's activation is done, you go back to being a normal Jack again. And this is a lot of the game, just knocking each other around. But you gotta pay attention to all the little special features that everyone has. This guy's got a ranged weapon on him. This Recamatic, yeah. The Recamatic here, if you roll high enough, or if you roll 1 or more double strikes, you will knock out the opponent, or knock them down. This thing here, the Interceptor, makes it a lot easier to play goalie, and gives you a little extra on that stop attempt like you saw. That's a Scrambler. If you hit a Jack with that, they can be, if you hit them, again, there's a little threshold, they'll be rattled. Pulverizer, as you saw in that guy, it's just a heavy-hitting weapon. There's a Grappler, so if you roll high enough, you can pull guys to you. There's the Magna Grip, I believe is what it's called, which makes it easier to hold the grinder. This game is a ton of fun. I've only played like 2 games so far, but we've really enjoyed it. Been really itching to get back into it when we've got the time. A few other things I want to go over are power attacks. You have to use at least 1 of the red power dice when you perform a power attack. They're pretty easy. There's a combo where you can attack with both arms, as long as both of them are legal attacks. And it sounds weird, but that makes sense, because I have a guy set up with a Scrambler and a Grappler. So I could do a combo with him, fire off that Grappler, pull a guy in, and as long as I did the first part correct, then the Scrambler is a melee weapon, then the guy is now in range for me to hit with that. Or maybe you want to punch a guy and have him land a few spaces away so that he's far enough away that you can use your ranged weapon, which is only 2 and 3 spaces away. So you might want to try stuff like that. So that's a combo attack. There's a throw, where as long as the target has equal or less armor than you, you can throw them. They go over obstacles. You can still try and stop the grinder as normal, but I mean, you could throw it over a knockdown Jack. You could throw it over the pillars in the center. You could not even a knockdown Jack, any Jack. You can just try and throw it over. Makes it a little harder for them to get it. There's a steamroll, which is kind of cool. If you're surrounded, you make a roll and try and knock all the guys around you 1 space away. There's a body slam, which is exactly what it sounds like. You roll a body slam, you roll high enough, bam! The Jack you can place it in any space adjacent to you, select its facing, and put a knockdown marker on it, because that sucker is knocked down. And those are the power attacks. That's what you use the red dice for. Though you can use the red dice on any other attack or action, really, if you just want to boost the odds of that succeeding. Also got plays. Once per turn, you can call a play. These are kind of neat. There's Hustle Back. You roll 2 boost dice. The number of hits is the number of Jacks that you can have move up to their speed. It's like giving them a free movement. But I believe they have to go, no, the movement they make has to go towards your goal zone. So that's good. Say you've got a couple of guys, like, you know, you've got some dudes up here, and the other guys are just doing a little too well. You could call a hustle back, roll, hopefully. Let's see. Hey, I got 2, so that's good. So I can 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's say 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. So now I've got a little more in my zone. So that's the benefit of a hustle back. Hit and rip is really cool. This is one I really just can't wait to use. Alright. So, if your Jack is making an attack against an opposing Warjack, and you hit the guy, your attack succeeds. You can declare your play as a hit and rip, and then you take the exact same dice that you rolled for this guy, and roll them again on an attack against the grinder. So you'll hit this guy, probably knock him a few spaces away, and then you can, with the same, like, follow through, you knock the grinder where you want it to go. So I just think sounds kind of cool. There's Protect. You just get 2 boost dice when you're doing actions and attacks in your goal zone, or the 2 squares, or the 2 columns in front of it. There's a Slingshot, which just means your crushers can target your runners with their throw attacks. Normally you can't attack your own guys. But for this, you like throw guys down the field. That sounds like so much fun. There's a Hail Mary. Normally when you make a throw, you can only throw something 5 spaces. With a Hail Mary, you can throw it 7 spaces as long as that final space is within reach of one of your teammates. So as long as there's someone there to handle the grinder, or another person technically, when it hits there, you can try for a Hail Mary. I almost did this the other day. My buddy actually got a Hail Mary off. It was really fun. Clear path. That basically means if you call that play, your runners can't be blocked by enemy jacks if they're in reach of your crushers. Your crushers are basically hounding them and keeping them from stopping your guy. Isolation, I haven't really used yet, but I probably should have the other game. If you have a runner and he starts his activation 4 or more spaces away from anyone else, they get 2 extra boost dice when redlining. Redlining something I should mention real quick, because I already went over the control stat a little bit. Redlining, you see the boiler there? Say you want to move, this guy's got, well, let's do one of these guys. He's got 4 movement. 1, 2, 3, 4. But he really wants to go 5, 6, so he can smack this guy. Well, he just redlined. You can do that. His boiler stat is the maximum amount of boost dice he can... Oh, no, wait, it's not boost dice. It's regular old action dice. Boiler stat is the maximum number of dice you can roll for redlining. Crushers have 2, runners have 3. Not that big of a difference. So this guy's redlining by 2 squares, or 2 spaces. That's the maximum dice I can roll, and I'm going to do it. Ah! I didn't make it. You need to roll a number of strikes equal to the number of extra spaces you moved. I didn't do that, and I believe he is now rattled, because he tried to push himself a little too hard. So now he made it, but now he's not really in a good position. But that's what you get for pressing your luck. I believe you can use power dice on those if you want. I'm not sure on that. And I believe that's all I feel like covering for now. I could go talk a lot more about this. I could go a lot more in depth. I didn't go over the weapons much. I didn't go over a lot of little things. There's the gutter, which is cool. Just want to point that out real quick. Normally, when you hit the grinder or hit anything, you have to place a target marker where you want it to go. So, say I'm trying to throw this guy 1, 2, trying to throw it 3 spaces. Well, 3 spaces would actually be here. But say I rolled like 6 hits. Normally, when you hit the target you've marked, the grinder will stop. However, if that's in the gutter and that you rolled more hits than you needed, it's going to keep going. So say I rolled 6 hits. 1, 2, 3. Now, if this were out here, it would stop. But oh no, 1, 2, 3. You rolled 6 hits. 4, 5, 6. It will continue all of the movement that you've rolled, or it will go for the maximum distance that it can go. There's nothing really scary or nothing special about it once it's in there. You know, it's not extra difficult to knock it out of the gutter or anything like that. It's just something to bear in mind, something I plan on trying to maybe use to my advantage at some point. You know, maybe like knock it in here, have it go around a little bit, have a guy come out, pull it up, and then pass it in. It was a really fun thing about actually playing this was it's a passing game a lot of the time too. One guy's not going to do it. You're going to have to pass between guys. Oh, the first game of this was great. The first game we played because we did not score at all for the whole first period. The ball just kept getting like within one. We kept just like one strike short of getting a goal almost every time. But this is the sports game I have, and I'm gonna play going forward. Yeah, I'd love to get into Blood Bowl, but who has the money for that? This is a nice, fairly simple, self-contained fantasy sports game with steam-powered robots bashing each other around over a pit of lava. This is a game that was practically made just for me. I mean, I may as well have been their only focus testing. It's a real fun game, simple basic mechanic, great to get into, nice strategy, and it's just been really fun. I picked this up only like a week ago, and as soon as I picked it up, I'm like, alright, this is my next video. I gotta show this off to people. So there you have it, folks. That is the heavy metal battle sport that is Grind. I've been Lincoln for Tokens and Heft, and I will see you guys next time.